Well, good morning and welcome to 2017. I hope you had a great Christmas and I wish you a really happy and blessed New Year. I don't know what New Year means to you or what you do to celebrate it. One of the things that I tend to do is I tend to think about the future, but I also reflect upon the past. And I guess this year, for all sorts of reasons, I started thinking about the things that I've learnt where church leadership is concerned. I guess there's always a time in leadership where you have to take stock and you have to work out those things that really matter, those priorities in terms of your own life and leadership. For me, it's been three, but before I tell you what mine are, I just thought it might be interesting to find out what yours are. What three things have you learnt in your leadership to date that you would want to share with others? I'd be really interested to know. So drop me a line, leave a comment, and let me know what things you've learnt where leadership is concerned, and that way that we can learn together. For me, the three really begin with the first one, which is it's a marathon, not a sprint. Do you know, when I first started out in leadership, I was young, I was enthusiastic, and I honestly thought that I could sort everything out within the first year, naive as I was. One of my senior ministers said to me one day, we overestimate what we can accomplish in 1 year and underestimate what we can accomplish in 5. But for me, it was important to set large targets. What I've learnt over the years is that it is important to pace yourself. The danger for many ministers is that they burn out because they just go at it and go at it and go at it and don't give any regard whatsoever to their own spiritual well-being and their own physical well-being. We need to pace ourselves. We need to learn something that an old minister said to me years ago. God moves mightily slowly. All we have to do is keep pace with him. And you know, I've experienced times in ministry when God moves all at a rush. But for most of the time, it seems to me that God moves slowly and mightily. He paces himself. I guess the reason for that is that we might learn patience, because patience is a virtue that many of us don't actually possess very much of. I thought I was patient, and then I had kids, and I discovered that I didn't actually have anything that was really trying my patience, and the moment it did, I discovered how little patience I actually had. We've got to learn patience. We've also got to recognise the fact that if we're going to lead a body of people, if we're going to lead a church forward, then we need to recognise that there will be some people who will own change and will run with change because they're early adopters. That's what lights them up. That's what gets them out of bed in the morning. For other people, they're cautious. They hold back. They want to know whether it's going to be okay or not. And if we're going to lead the whole church, then we need to be able to pace ourselves in such a way that, yes, there is movement, but there's movement with purpose. There's movement with pace. So the first thing I've learned over the years is that we need to recognise that it's a marathon, not a sprint. The second thing I've learned is that we ought to work smarter, not harder. I can't tell you the number of ministers who tell me that most of the time they're rushed off their feet. And if I'm honest, I feel like that most of the time too. Coming back off Christmas break into a new year, I just feel overwhelmed by the number of things that actually I've got to do, the things that actually are pressing. And it seems to me that the more we want to move things forward, the harder that becomes. It's so much easier to maintain the status quo. We think that the way to do it is to work harder, to just put in more hours, to put in more effort. But is that necessarily the case? Sometimes it's better for us to say, well, okay, we need to work smarter at this. We need to work out what our priorities are and plan for those. One of the things I learnt a number of years ago was that though I had been trained to be a general practitioner, God had actually called me to be a specialist, that there were certain things that I could contribute to the life of the church that when I did, helped the whole of the church to grow. It reminded me of Ephesians chapter 4, where it says God gave some to be pastors and teachers, prophets, evangelists, and apostles to prepare God's people for works of service that God had called them to do. So my role was to encourage them. My role was to inspire them. My role sometimes was to leave a vacuum in the life of the church that somebody else would move to fill. Because the problem was, if I moved to fill it, then everybody would let me do that. We need to work smarter, not necessarily harder, though it will be hard work. So that's the second thing I've learned. The third thing is this. We are called to involve others. There is no such thing as one-man ministry. There is no such thing as sole pastoral charge. Our job is to equip others for works of service. Our job is to recruit them to do what God has called them to do. And when we do, the church begins to function more fully and more effectively. The truth is, we can't be good at everything. If we know what we're good at, then we're very fortunate. If we invest ourselves in it, then the church will be greatly blessed. One, because we'll be doing what we're called to do, but secondly, because we will be able to call others to do what they are called and gifted to do. We're to be about recruitment. We're to be about encouragement. We're to be about inspiration. And sometimes we're to be about challenge, to nudge people to do what they don't think they can do, to work in the areas that they don't believe themselves to be equipped for, but actually, in the economy of God, are. So those are my three. The things that I feel are really important to me, the things that in some ways have shaped my own leadership and my own ministry. Let me know what yours are. Be really interested to hear from you. Really value any comments that you have with regard to these thoughts for the week, and any observations that you might make, subjects that you might like to look at. Why don't you share this with somebody else if you found it helpful? And if you've not found it helpful, then let me know, because I'd love to hear from you.